Okay, so today we're going to do lesson 12.8. And just in case you forgot, tomorrow we'll review and Friday we will test. Woo woo! Almost done with new information in 6th grade. Super exciting. Okay, so just wish we were together instead of apart. But we can do these. We can do hard things. So, lesson 2.8 is a problem solving lesson when we take those data displays and that information that we have been talking about and putting it together to clarify or to make distinctions about information. So bear with me. We might get this done. Okay. So this first question up here is our first question. And a lot of them look like this. And besides this video, I will be practicing a couple others with you in another video. But we'll have you get going on this one. And then you can go into the lesson. And then we'll try the other two. Okay. So this question says, kind of a question. It states something and then it asks us a question. The table shows the highest state populations in 2007, rounded to the nearest million. What percent of the states had at least 15 million residents? Now, when you think about it, remember a percent? We can find a percent from a fraction where we find the decimal. And then from there, we can change that decimal into a percent. So this isn't like crazy weird information you can't figure out, okay? So don't stress. All right, so first of all, let's look at, this is our data. This is finding out what it is we're looking for. So what do we need to find? Well, we need to find the percent of states that had at least 15%. So up here, I also want to write up here, at least. At least. At least means it's 15 million or more, okay? When it's at least 15, it has to be 15 million or more. Okay, and that's anything above that. What information do you need to use? Well, you're going to need to use the state population data, which is in our chart. And then how will you use this information? I will pick intervals for the data, find the frequency for each interval, and use the frequency to make a histogram. Now, you can make a dot plot if you feel like you're more comfortable with that. I like that today we're going over histograms again, just to remind us. So after we make that histogram, I will use the information from the histogram to find the percent. Okay, we'll walk through all of that together. Okay, so based on the data in this table, they already made this for us, but they made us sorry, I'm only going to show you part of it. They made the frequency table by making groups. So 5 million to 9 million, there are 11 states that fall into that category, 10 to 14. Remember how we made intervals? We find sections of it when there's so much information. 15 to 19, 20 to 24, 25 to 29, 30 to 34, and 35 to 40. So basically what they did is they looked at what their highest and their lowest was and figured out how to make a bunch of groups, right? A bunch of intervals. We did this the other day. Okay, so it says use this frequency table to make a histogram. So based on this table, here's our histogram. 5 to 9, all the way up here to 11. 10 to 14, there were 5. 15 to 19, there were 2. 20 to 24, there was 1. There was 0 and 0 and 1 again. So these two sections had 0. But they'd still be in a section up there as well. So don't negate a 0. It still is a data point. Okay? There are still states in there. Well, kind of. Okay, so then I'm going to look at that and it says states with at least 15 million. Remember, at least means at 15 million or more. So there, within this interval of 15 to 19, there were 2. But then in these 2 other intervals, there were 1. So we take the 2 plus the 1 plus the 1, and we have 4 total. Okay, now that's what we need to know to do our percent. There were a total of 20. If we added these up, these data points, we would see that there were 20 states that were talked about in this population data grid. Okay, so we take that percent. We want to find that percent with at least 15 million. We take those 4. There were 4 states with 15 million or more. We divide that by 20. Remember, 20 is the total amount. 4 is the amount that we are talking about counting. We're only counting those 4. So that is 20%. And again, feel free to use a calculator, okay? Or you probably could think this in your head. When it's out of 20, I can usually figure it out, okay? And then it's 20%. So we had 20 is our decimal when I do the math on the calculator, and then I boop, boop, move it over 2, because remember, a percent is out of 100, so I have to move it over 2 places, those hundredths places, and I get 20%. So 20% of the states have populations over 15 million, okay? Just 20% of those states that we got data for. Okay, so we're going to use this same information, so I want to make sure I can still see this, but this just says use the data in the histogram above, so we're not going to change that in this problem, but what percent of the states had between, so this one is between 5 million and 14 million residents. Okay, so let's look at states with 15 to 14 million. Let's look up here. We can look up here too. So let's see, 5 is here, 14 is here. So how many states are between there? Well, I'm going to come back up to this, and there are 16 states, which kind of makes sense because this was at least 15 million and this was up to 14 million, which keeps us right below that 15. So that's the other part of it. 16, I want to find that percent again. So I'm going to take that 16 and put it over 20, the total amount of states that were in the count to begin with. And that is going to be 80%, which makes sense. It's opposite that one. That was 20%. That's 80%. Okay. But again, I can put that down and I can simplify that and put it in 4/5 and I can see that that's 80%. I could even just do it down to, I could have done an 8 out of 10 as well. And you definitely can tell that that's 80%. Okay, whatever works for your brain. Calculators are great at this time. So don't stress if you're like, I don't know that off the top of my head. That's cool. Just make sure you remember that that is 16 divided by 20. And when we've done the math before, remember this gets tipped over on its side and it would be 20 going into 16. That's how we get the decimals. Okay, so just in case you're like, I got to do it by hand, that's fine. Just make sure when we have a fraction, we tip it on its side. We tip it to the right. 20 is on the outside of the 16. The big number's going into the little number. That's why percentages work. Okay. Now let's look at number 2. Just another question about the same data, but a different question. What percent of the states had less than 10 million residents? So I'm going to look up here. Here's 10. So it's not saying including 10. It just says less than 10. So all below. Well, so that is 11, right? We can look up here if we need to, but that's 11. And then we take the percent there. And remember, percent is 11 out of the total number of states that we had data points for. 11 out of 20. Okay, can't simplify that. You can tip it on its side. Remember, 20 into 11 and do the math. But I also know that 50% would be 10. And when we're going by, when we have 20, we go by 2s. So it's actually going to be 55%. So I just used some of my math sense, knowing that 10 is 50. And if I had 12, that would be 60%. So 11's in between that, so it's 55%. Okay? Awesome. Okay, remember that now you're going to go watch the lesson video, and you're going to start at 4 minutes and 50 seconds and do the second half of that video for this lesson for 12.8. But beware, there will probably be another video. You might see it on your lesson plan right now with a couple other examples for you to follow. Okay? All right. You are doing great. I'm so proud of you. Make sure you're taking good notes because I'm going to let you use everything that you want on the test. Okay? Except for try not to use a parent because that would be cheating and the parent would be taking the test. But you can use all your other stuff and you can study with them really great right before. Okay. Love your guts. Talk to you soon. Bye.